Oh, yeah. Hello, welcome, and sorry. Happy Friday, folks. Welcome to another live stream, Maple Bitcoin Friday live stream. I am Jor. This is my good friend Rajat. We are forestless today. So it's just the two of us. We were going to find another guest, but we figured last time it was just the two of us. We had a really good chat. So the world is our oyster today. This one's titled, Did Bitcoiners Get Rugged by the US Government? So that's what we're going to be talking about. That's where we're going to start with today. We're going to talk about a few other things, including Warren Buffett. And we're actually going to have quite a bit of time today for some questions. So if you are in the chat today and you want to have a question asked or an answered, you can throw it in there. And yeah, let's kick things off here, Rajat. I usually have a question, but I didn't have a question to think of today. So
what if we just start with talking about what we mean by the title there?
Sure. So yes, did Bitcoiners get rugged by the U.S. government? When the current administration in the U.S., one of the things that they were running on is that they were going to set up a Bitcoin strategic reserve. They were going to start buying some Bitcoin. And then yesterday we saw a clip of Scott Bessent. He announced that the U.S. government would still be setting up a reserve, but they wouldn't actually be buying any Bitcoin. And it seemed like there was a lot of wind taken out of the sails from Bitcoiners all around the world because the U.S. government is not buying Bitcoin. But maybe we should just kind of talk through it, our take on it, what we think could play out. What were your first thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't think it matters. At the end of the day, Canada doesn't, or I'd say the Bitcoin doesn't need the U.S. government. The U.S. government needs Bitcoin. Right? At the end of the day, Bitcoin will survive regardless. It doesn't matter if the U.S. government doesn't own it. Somebody else will take that Bitcoin. Right? I was doing some calculations. All these people who keep rejecting Bitcoin, they're losing a lot of money. Right? When Germany sold 50,000 Bitcoin near the bottom in August of 2024, and that Bitcoin's more than doubled. So they've lost out on like $3 billion. That's the thing, right? You can, at some point, what you're going to see is that you can still buy Bitcoin. You'll always be able to buy Bitcoin. And as long as fiat survives, you'll be able to buy Bitcoin. But what you have to understand is that the amount of Bitcoin that you can get is going to keep decreasing and keep decreasing until you can barely get even a whole Bitcoin if you're a massive institution.
Yeah, that was kind of my thoughts too, is like everybody's so obsessed with like governments buying Bitcoin. It's like, I don't care if the Canadian government ever buys Bitcoin. I actually hope that they don't. I don't want the Canadian federal government to have any more influence and power than they do today, personally. It's different, I think, on a local level. Like I watched a clip on the show this morning of a guy in the US, Average Gary, as the name is, and he was on Noster, but he was talking to his local municipal government about issuing Bitcoin bonds. Something like that makes a lot more sense to me because that's very local. It has a very large impact on your day-to-day life. You know, the condition of your roads. That's what everybody, talks about taxes for. The roads, hospital, medical stuff, schools, playgrounds, sports facilities, things like that. Like something like that that's actually going to impact your life, I think is actually a big deal. That's why you want your local government to be holding Bitcoin. But in terms of the federal government, like, take as long as you want. I also don't think that people understand like the full implications of when entities who have the ability to print money start buying Bitcoin, what happens to the price and what happens to everybody else around them. But the one thing that kind of stood out to me is like, we've seen the U.S. government since the new administration took over about 7 months ago now, or 8 months ago. They've been really flip-floppy. They've been really, they'll say one thing and then do the opposite of that the next week. And I think that there's some sort of strategy happening there, I think, because, it doesn't really make sense when you think about like the art of war. And I know that the current administration is definitely a subscriber to that theory. Like, why would you announce your plans before you actually do something? It doesn't make any sense to do that. Like Trump, if nothing else, is a businessman. He understands how this kind of stuff works. So I didn't take everything that they say nowadays. I really take with a grain of salt and just kind of step back and see, okay, what could be happening here? But what do you think the U.S. government's going to do from here? Like, where do they go from here? Are they just going to keep the confiscated Bitcoin? Are they going to start mining Bitcoin? Like, what do you think happens next in the saga?
It couldn't this be almost like a gameplay, or sorry, a game theory kind of them gaming it out? Like if they say this, then people are going to sell, or people are going to expect that they're not going to buy. Maybe they're lying.
Yeah, I mean, when you think through this, like this is kind of how I think about it. Is like before the administration took over in the U.S., we saw that Trump was actually going around to different mining companies like Riot, and I think it was CleanSpark. This is before he was even inaugurated. He was meeting with these Bitcoin miners, and to me, I think it's a much better long-term play to start setting up some of these relationships and building the infrastructure, because you have to think about the US government. Like, what's their main asset right now? I mean, they got a good military, they have the US or the world reserve currency, but I think the one thing that the US really has is resources, and the government owns a lot of land. And I think it would make a lot of sense to start forming relationships with some of these Bitcoin miners. And instead of just going out and printing money and buying Bitcoin, you have to understand from their perspective, that's a pretty bad look, because a lot of people in the US and around the world are pretty concerned with inflation. And if you start taking tax money or printing new money and buying Bitcoin when like 99% of the population doesn't understand what Bitcoin is, that's going to be a very negative impact, I think, towards the presidency. Whereas if you start building some stuff and you can create a steady stream of sats coming in through time, I think that that's a much more effective strategy than just buying Bitcoin. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, if you can but keep in mind also that if you buy a certain amount of Bitcoin today, you may never be able to buy that again, right? So let's say if you think about the cash, so the way that I don't know if I agree completely with what you said, but I do agree with part of it, right? So if they have value, then they can sell it for Bitcoin, but today they can print to get more Bitcoin. Today they can print more money to get more Bitcoin, right? And why not take advantage of that? But I get what you're saying. People don't understand, they don't understand it, and they don't get it, and they're gonna see a lot of pushback on that. It could, I guess, it could create some problems for later. Um, I think the important thing here is that if people can get their hands on Bitcoin, then they're good. It doesn't really matter what the U.S. government does.
Mm-hmm.
If you have Bitcoin and you have a certain amount, I don't care who the president is. I don't care who who runs the country. It doesn't really matter. Regardless of what happens, if you have Bitcoin in your cold wallet and you keep it safe and you keep stacking and you keep stacking over time, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, that's the other part of it too, is like I think that the governments themselves, like Bitcoiners want the governments to buy Bitcoin. And I get it. Like both sides of this, I kind of understand. Like from Bitcoiners' perspective, I think that they feel a sense of comfort, I guess. If the US government is buying Bitcoin, they're like, okay, that's kind of like a confirmation for them that they're doing the right thing. Right. But if you kind of understand that it doesn't really matter, like Bitcoin's going to outlive governments, it's going to outlive this administration, it's going to outlive us. And so when you play this out long term, it's like we know that governments are coming, and we have the ability to front run them. And I think that we shouldn't take for granted this time in history where you have this leverage, I guess, knowledge leverage, in the sense that you understand what's happening here. You have the ability to buy sats, still exchange fake printed dollars for the hardest currency that has ever existed in human history before. Why would you want to give that up? Like when governments start buying Bitcoin, we're going to go from like buying 800 sats for $1 to like 8 sats for $1. So just
Can I ask you a question before you go? Before you go, how do you know that governments are going to buy it? I have my answer, but how do you know? Like, I want to see what you have to say about.
I don't think that they're going to have a choice. I think
Why?
that everything else is going to go to zero against Bitcoin, and eventually, governments, as dumb as they are, as slow as they are, they're going to figure that out. Like it's just logical. It's the next thing that's going to happen here. And so the incentives within Bitcoin is like you can either fight this thing or you can join this thing. And the harder you fight, the worse off you are. And the more you embrace it, the better off you become. And I think the one advantage we have over governments right now is we have speed on our side. We have the ability to move very quickly. Anything that goes through governments takes a very long time. And so while they're kind of dragging their feet and with their thumbs up their butts, we have the ability to buy the sats, and they're going to have to buy those sats from us in the future at some point for a much higher price.
But why are they going to buy them? Can you talk about that? Like why? My reasoning behind that, like I'll tell you my reasoning. Just to tell you what I mean by this question. My reasoning is that this is the best money in the world because it has all the characteristics of money, right? And nothing else, nothing that they can create can replace the power of Bitcoin. The way like this probably sounds cultish to people. It sounds crazy to people. But when you look at the characteristics of how Bitcoin works and what it's supposed to do, nothing else can compete.
Agreed. So monetarily speaking, like if I mean, my only pushback to that would be like the governments don't really care about the people, and I think they're going to fight as hard as they can to maintain their fiat status. But
But they may not care about the people, but I think on the other side of things, they have to because without the people, then the government, what power does the government has?
yeah, they
Does
become
the government have?
irrelevant.
Right? We're basically like they're using us as leverage to get all of the loans that they get. Where their cash flow, right? So the U.S. government can take on loans because they know that they can pay back those loans either by printing money or getting cash flows from the citizens. And the reason why their currency is valuable is because we use it. So
Yep.
with fiat currencies, it's government appointed. With Bitcoin, it's market money. So the way that I see it is that with a government appointed money, they can enforce you to use it with guns and warfare. But market money becomes money because people want to actually use it. People are they benefit from using it. With fiat, we're forced to use it. We've been brainwashed for how long to use fiat currencies, right? And now we just see it as a normal form of money that we're always going to keep using, right? So that's the way that we see it today. But I think that as as the world discovers what Bitcoin is, as the world figures out what Bitcoin is, even if governments don't have it, they're going to be forced to have it because they're going to have to use it to pay for goods and services. They're going to need it to pay for oil, right? Why would oil producing countries? I mean, the U.S. produces some oil as well, from what I know. Why would oil producing countries want fiat for their oil when if they want to they could set up mining rigs, they can connect those mining rigs to those sources of oil, and they can get Bitcoin in exchange for that oil? Why would they want fiat?
100%. And that's the theory that I kind of go on with this is like the people who actually add value to the world are going to be the ones who drive this thing, in the sense of like if we think about that, like you just said oil there, which is a great example, and I fully agree with that. It's like if you're somebody who's producing oil, why would you want in return for that? Like that takes real work to produce oil. It takes real proof of work energy. Why would you trade that for something that somebody else can print? And I mean, historically, the reason why they have done that is because the US basically held their, you know, put their foot on their neck and said, unless you accept our dollars here, we're going to attack you and, overtake you. Like they've used their force to try to extract resources from countries. But if you think about it, something like along the same lines as like China produces a lot of medical equipment. Like the majority of our pharmaceuticals and stuff come from China, and the devices that we use come from China. If China decide that they don't want to accept US dollars anymore, but we still need to use their medical products, what's going to happen there? The US government is going to be forced to exchange some fiat for Bitcoin and send it to China in exchange for the goods. So it's like the people who are actually creating things and adding value, they're going to be the ones who get to decide what they accept for that. And so the government's falling in line with that. They're going to have to not only just use it, but eventually have some as like a reserve for the future. If they want to maintain their relevance and their influence and their power, they're going to need economic power, which is Bitcoin.
Yeah, just in case it happens. I feel like that's the key here. In case it happens, it may not happen. The world may not adopt Bitcoin, but again, anybody who doesn't adopt Bitcoin, they're gonna have to deal with a scarcity, a life full of scarcity. Everything is going to be scarce. Everything is going to be um, everything is going to be harder and harder to acquire if you don't have Bitcoin. Even if you have
Yes.
stocks, I think even with stocks, like if you think about it, stocks are going up 10% per year. But steak, I saw this picture of somebody who posted a picture of steak. It went from like $49 to $80 or something within 2 years, 3 years or something like that. So in that time, it's up 30% a year or something. Of course, I think there was a shortage of cattle, and that's of course a reason for it. But in terms of Bitcoin, the price of stake has gone down.
Hmm. And will continue to.
Yes, forever.
The other thing too, I think why governments are going to want to hold Bitcoin is really a matter of national security, right? Like the whole concept of Bitcoin, and you, Forrest, and myself did a show talking about the social layer of Bitcoin yesterday. And one of the things was like, it's encryption. It's we consider it money. That's what we use it for, is sending value to each other. But it's also a very powerful encryption. And so as AI and technology continue to improve, these countries communicating with each other and within the countries, that information needs to be encrypted. And Bitcoin itself, using SHA-256, is the most powerful form of that right now. And so it's much more than just storing value and having a reserve, but like this is really a matter of national security for a lot of these countries, the ability to communicate without somebody intercepting that message and essentially putting their country and citizens at risk. So that's another reason for it, aside from the reserve aspect of it. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. So
Yeah, it's like with the Jason Lowry theory,
yeah,
where he says that whoever was the one that adopted gunpowder first, they were the ones who were able to survive through the wars because they could kill people from a distance, they could kill people from up close. They had a lot more power. Whoever discovers power and then they wield it, they're the ones who get ahead, right? History is written by the winners. It's not written by the losers. It's written by the people who survive. If you don't survive, you're not going to be writing history. So with Bitcoin, if a government, I think if a government doesn't own Bitcoin, they're going to die. It's as simple as that. Because if they can't pay for the things that they need to pay for, they're going to get voted out, or they're going to get taken over because they're not going to be the most powerful institution in that country.
right. And I mean, we're kind of living through that right now, in my opinion. Anyways, it's like I posted a video yesterday talking about just how scarce Bitcoin really is. And if you look at a company like Strategy, who has over 600,000 Bitcoin, and I don't know what you think about this, but I don't think there's going to be any other entity that ever comes close to 600,000 Bitcoin. And so
No.
if this theory plays out the way we expect it to, the person with the most Bitcoin wins, or the entity with the most Bitcoin wins. So in that sense, Strategy would actually have much more power, economic power anyways, than the US government, the Canadian government for sure, any government on earth. And that's what governments have. That's what's kept them around so long, is they have the economic power. But at some point, if they rely on the old fiat dollar and the old system, as everybody else shifts out of that, they kind of just get left behind there. And so it'll be interesting to see what kind of world we live in, where a corporation, even though I guess the US government technically is a corporation, but like as differently as we think about it, actually has the most influence and power on the planet. Like what kind of world does that look like, where a public company has more power and influence than a country?
Yeah. Do you think that? And then there's a lot of people saying that um, there are reasons for the U.S. government to take over MicroStrategy. Do you think that could be possible?
I mean, I do. I do think it's definitely possible, and that's why I'm very hesitant in terms of like that. I think that's why you and I both push so hard for people to actually take self custody of their coins, because let's say that the government turns out. Let's say that the current administration is Bitcoin friendly the whole time, like they said they're going to be, but then they get voted out. Maybe Democrats get back into power. They start outlawing Bitcoin. The people, but at that time, I think Bitcoin is going to be obviously much more valuable. I think that people just really have to avoid being the lowest hanging fruit, because even if you're holding your wealth in like Strategy or a Bitcoin ETF, or even on Coinbase, like that can easily be seized from you. Not only seized, but also taxed. And I think the tax is the thing that people really need to worry about, like a wealth tax, an unrealized tax on gains. Because let's say that you had, let's just play this out. Let's say that you had 100,000, you have one Bitcoin today, and Bitcoin very conservatively goes to $1 million. I think that's very conservative. And all of a sudden you're sitting on a $900,000 gain. And the government comes out and says, you know what? We're getting desperate. We're losing power. We need more money. We need to start taxing the people who have the wealth. And so they say, you got a $900,000 gain on your Bitcoin. we're taking an unrealized tax on that 25%, and you're going to have to come up with like $250,000 just to pay the government. You won't sell the Bitcoin, so you won't have the actual cash to pay for it, but you're going to have to come up with $225,000 to pay the government for your unrealized tax. That's what I'm more concerned with for the average person. Whereas if you're holding that in cold storage, it's going to be much harder for them to take from you, seize or tax. And that's kind of what happened when they seized the gold. It's like they didn't take everybody's gold. I'm pretty sure they just said it was illegal to hold gold. They didn't go door to door. But when you have your Bitcoin like exposed to whether it's a brokerage account through Strategy or iBit, or you have it on an exchange, they know that you have that. They know that you have access to that account. If you're holding your own keys, you could just say, I lost my keys. What are you going to do? Are you going to, how can you prove that I have ownership of this Bitcoin?
It's not even that just that they know that you have it. They have control over it. They're holding it for you. Right. I would assume that BlackRock is more easily taken over than MicroStrategy, because MicroStrategy is actually, I don't know. I don't know how they would, like, if we think that they can get to 1 million, do you think that the US government can get to 1 million Bitcoin at this point? I don't think so. Unless they do something like what you said, the unrealized capital gains tax, or they do something like if you sell your Bitcoin to the US government, then you don't have to pay taxes. And you can take advantage of whatever you want to pay for today. And I think people would do that. I actually think a lot of people would do that, because even now, a very small group of people understand what Bitcoin is. And the ones who don't understand it, they're going to be distracted by the fiat price. Right? They're going to be distracted by the $1 million. Like you said, $1 million is very conservative, but they're going to be distracted by that, and they're going to sell because they think that it's never going any higher than that. Like, there are people in the comments. There's one guy in the comments. I think he was here last time too. Arume.
Oh yeah.
He said, I think he was here last time, right? Is it the same guy?
Yeah, I think so.
So he said something like Bitcoin's probably going to go to 200K in 2040. I think that's going to age like milk.
What did he say?
Bitcoin, he said, I would be surprised if Bitcoin reaches 200K by 2040.
Oh my God. Okay, let's not even pay attention to this.
I'm actually
like, that's so insane.
I'm thinking of banning him. This because
don't ban him. Just don't give him any attention.
Let me put him in timeout then.
Okay.
He's trolling us at this point. It's just annoying. Okay, do you want to answer that the $5 super chat there?
Oh, I didn't see it. I'm behind.
Yeah, might as well get it over. Yeah.
We got a lot of chats coming in here. So, I mean, just on that note, like, there's only 2 of us. It's a little bit easier with Forrest here because Forrest can chime in. I need to be a little bit more active. So if you do have a question or something you want addressed, make sure you put a super chat in, or throw it in as a zap, when we got some zaps coming in too. So that QR code beside, right above Rajat there, you can actually send in some sats, and you can attach a comment or a question with that. So, I mean, I'm way behind on chats already, so that's kind of what we're going to have to do today. But this is from Gravy. Great name. I started cloud mining on Go Mining, and it's been going great. What are your thoughts on cloud mining? It's steady passive Bitcoin income that grows. I like it. Do you have thoughts on this?
I don't quite understand what it is. I just Googled it in the background. It's basically, so it says here, cloud mining primarily requires an internet connection and account with a cloud mining service and cryptocurrency for payment. Unlike traditional mining, it doesn't necessitate the purchase of expensive hardware, electricity, or maintenance of equipment. Essentially, you are renting computing power to or from a remote data center. So I think, I mean, it depends on, so depending on how much money you make, right? I don't know how much money you would be making from this, but you have to consider electricity costs. You have to consider all the time that you put into putting this together and making sure it works. Would that time be better used building your skills and increasing the value of your labor, right? Because let's say you use that time. I don't know how long you would put into that. He says that it's passive, but if you could put that time into building new skills, let's say you could learn about something, and you could turn that into some kind of business, some kind of passive, or not even passive, but active income. And maybe it eventually turns into something that you can use to quit your job, right? is that worth it, or is this, depending on how much income you get? Do you need passive income? Passive income is great. If you get it in terms of Bitcoin, that's even better. But how long is this sustainable for? Would it be more sustainable to build your skills, and would that be more fulfilling? Right. So I don't personally know too much about cloud mining, but the way that I see it, anything that you do, there's an opportunity cost. You have to make sure that you are making the decision that's best for your future. Maybe this is the best decision that you can make. To be honest, I don't know too much about it. I don't know if it would be worth it. If you've done the research, gravy, then keep doing it if you continue to get passive income. But obviously consider the amount of money that you're paying towards electricity and everything else that you're paying for.
Yeah, I don't know what cloud mining means, but I have heard of a couple different companies who you basically pay a fee to, and you actually own the devices. They just kind of it's very similar. Like, I mean, you got a couple different options when you're thinking about mining here. Like, you can go. I'd say you have three options right now. Number one, you can buy your own miner and you can solo mine, which means that you're contributing your hash power to the network and you're competing for the block reward on your own. So the odds are very low of you actually hitting a block. But if you hit that block, you get the reward. You get 3.125 Bitcoin plus the transaction fees included in that block. So it's very similar to like a lottery mine, they call it, the solo mining. The second thing you can do is pool mine. So you can actually set up your own miner. You can send your hash rate to a mining pool, and you can get a more steady stream of sats coming in like that. It's more predictable. You contribute your power and they send you sats in return. So you're basically pooling your energy together to increase your odds of winning a block. The third thing is something like this, where you could actually hire a company to do it all for you on your behalf. So I would assume that if somebody else is using their expertise and knowledge, they're going to charge you for that, or they're dumb, right? So probably the most profitable way would be actually running your own miners, sending your hash power to a pool, generating sats that way. But like as Rajat mentioned, there is a learning curve there. You're gonna have to take some time to learn how to set it up, to learn how to which pool is best to send it to. This seems like kind of a shortcut in that sense, where you basically just pay to play, and you get sats in return. So I think either way, it's a good idea to be somewhat involved in mining, whether it's either one of those three things. I have a BitAxe here. I plan on getting a little bit more active in mining. I think it's important. So I think that there's going to be more and more things like this in the future. I just don't know enough to, make a good comment, but it seems like he's making some money off it based on his follow-up comments there.
Yeah.
So anyways, thank you, Grady Gravy, for the super chat there. Sid Lloyd also sent in $5. Rajat and I had the pleasure of meeting Sid in Vegas. So thank you, Sid. And Praetorian also sent in $10, just saying thanks. So thank you, Praetorian. Appreciate that a lot. And we got a couple zaps to report here too before we go any further. Somebody sent in 15,213 sats yesterday at night. So they must have watched one of our videos on YouTube and sent in 15,000. So I want to give a shout out to them. During the stream, though, somebody sent in 2,750 anonymously. That big one was also sent in anonymously too. So whoever did that, God bless you. Somebody also sent in 8,516 sats. Wow. And also 1,000 sats. Somebody said, I buy Bitcoin because I don't trust the government. I do not care if the corrupt US government buys or not. Amen to that.
Yeah. Agreed.
And
it doesn't matter if the U.S. government buys it. The U.S. government is irrelevant. Like we said in the beginning, the U.S. government isn't. The U.S. government needs Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't need the U.S. government.
Yes, 100%. And somebody also sent in 21 sats, which we appreciate, and said, woohoo, my first time sending sats to someone. Thanks, guys. Love the show.
Wow, so nice of them.
That is very nice. So what do we got next here, Rajat?
So I wanted to talk about this tweet that I posted earlier today. There was actually, I noticed after there was a community note. I think this is recent. The numbers are actually a little bit lower. So it's not 5 billion, it's 1.6 billion. So just divide it by 3 and you get the right number. So in this case, it would be something like 15,000 Bitcoin. So Warren Buffett gave up 15,000 Bitcoin to invest $5 billion in United Health. So you guys know what United Health is? Do you know what United Health is, Jor? The company that had their CEO, the Luigi.
Oh, yeah. Life insurance?
Yes. So their stock is absolutely collapsing. And I don't know why that is. You can see here. Stock is just falling like crazy. Warren Buffett is really good with finding stocks that are undervalued, and he gets them, right? I guess one of the reasons for this drop was probably emotions, people just selling because they think that it'll keep going lower, they don't like the company. So the stock dropped like 50% and Warren Buffett bought it. But I think, so if we go back to the tweet, let's replace this with like 14, 15,000. So Warren Buffett gave up 14,000 Bitcoin to invest 5 billion or 1.6 billion in this case in United Health. He could have made Berkshire Hathaway one of the maybe 10th or 15th biggest holders of Bitcoin, because the number should be changed. So let's say 15th biggest holders of Bitcoin in the world. And I think this is going to play out terribly for Warren Buffett. So you can see here, it's actually $1.6 billion. It's his company. So it's Berkshire Hathaway. And you can see the community note. Any thoughts on this, Jor? I think this is going to age absolutely terribly.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough talking about Warren Buffett because he came from a different time. He benefited from the fiat system. This is the kind of stuff that he's been known for. This is what he's made his career off of, is like buying things when it's low and selling them back when they're high, or just never selling them. And so I think that going along the lines of his strategy, this would make a lot of sense. Because I mean, I don't really know what caused it to crash. It didn't really sound like there's a real good answer to that right now. So when you don't have a good answer for it and it just crashes, that, to me, if I was still in the stock market, I think that would actually be a good buy. But Warren Buffett, when he's looking for things like this, when he's scoping things out, when he's spending his very limited time during the day, he's looking at this stuff. He's not thinking about Bitcoin. He doesn't care about Bitcoin. I 100% agree that this is going to be one of the dumbest moves in history, buying United Health instead of Bitcoin. But he just doesn't know. Then that's the whole problem right now, is he's not educated on Bitcoin.
And isn't it crazy how Warren Buffett, the majority of the money he's made has been through other people's ignorance, right? So he makes a lot of money through banks. He makes a lot of money through people being financially illiterate. He makes money from people paying on their credit cards the amount of interest that they have to pay. He makes money from Coca-Cola, which is literally just selling cancer, right? They're just selling they're selling liquid sugar. They're selling diabetes in a bottle, basically, right? He makes a lot of money from them. He makes, like, I don't know, what is it, like $700 or $70 million or something like that, something crazy. I think it's $70 million a quarter or a year. But he makes a lot of money from them. He makes a lot of money from these companies that are pretty much destroying the world. And I think United Health is one of them, right? They, like, people go into debt and they commit suicide because of medical debt. And I saw this post where it said how a couple divorced because of medical debt, because of how it would work after the husband passes away, right? So instead of burdening the wife with all of his debt, they divorced. And this is the kind of end game that fiat currency is creating, right? This is the kind of thing that fiat currency is making us do. It's literally destroying society. This is the scary part of this, where Warren Buffett is benefiting from all of this, right? He's making the most money out of everybody for doing this.
Yeah, it's kind of sickening. There's a lot of sick things that happen in this world, and I mean, as Warren Buffett, like, I kind of see his point of view in the sense of, like, his job is literally to make a return for his, the people who hold Berkshire Hathaway. That's his job.
Yeah.
Good or bad. I mean, you can argue the ethical aspect of it, but I mean, even if we think about United Health compared to Bitcoin and what the future of this whole thing could play out in, is like, right now, if you think about the world, how it's set up, where you basically pay health insurance just so when you get sick, some of that's covered. And that's same as life insurance, same as these other things. Like, they're all scams to me, because in a sense, like, you could pay for a term life insurance, never use that, and just sank a bunch of money into it for nothing. You get absolutely nothing out of that. Whereas if you just, started sending 100 sats or 1,000 sats every day to your own medical fund, that's going to appreciate over time. And the nice thing about that is, even if you don't get sick, you still have your money. Yeah. So with things like this, with United Health, you're almost like, you're not trying to get sick, but if you do get sick, there's going to be somebody there to look after you. And that's just such a lazy mentality, I think, for people. Is like, whereas if you had a Bitcoin and a Bitcoin fund, a Bitcoin medical fund for yourself and your family, you put Bitcoin in there, even if you don't get sick, you still own that and it's going to appreciate over time. And you don't have to pay a monthly fee to it. You can pay whatever you want to, whenever you want to into it. So I think we're going to see a shift. So I think not when I'm saying this, I'm saying macro, something like United Health is not going to be around in a decade from now. And so I agree this is a very stupid bet, even though this is what Buffett's done historically. Buffett might not understand that we're actually moving through a much bigger shift right now than, up and downs, highs and lows in the stock market. Like, we're moving into a brand new world right now where United Health is going to be irrelevant.
Yeah. One of the crazy things that I was thinking about here is how Bitcoin changes the industry, the whole industry of healthcare, right? So before we'd have to go through this institution to make our payments. So United Health, they're one of the biggest insurance companies in the world, from what I know, and they have shareholders, and their shareholders are making a profit from the service that they're providing. And healthcare is healthcare is mandated; it's forced on people by governments. Right, so the shareholders are making a profit off something that governments are forcing on people. It's almost like it's a cartel, right? They're saying we're going to shoot you if you don't have this, and if you have it, you have to pay our shareholders, and we're going to take a cut out of their profits. So the shareholders, they're giving a cut out of their profits to the government. And with Bitcoin, think about how this could change. With um, with Bitcoin, you could potentially just pay your doctor directly, right? Let's say instead of let's say if you go for a cleaning or something, a tooth cleaning, if you pay them directly, they'll charge you $100. But if you pay the insurance company, if you take a look at the bill, it's gonna be like $250, right? So where's that $150 extra amount of money going? Is that going to the insurance company? Is that how would that how does that make any sense? Where's that money going? Like, who's is the dentist giving a cut to the insurance company? I don't know what would be happening there. How is
It's
it
going to
possible?
it's getting split between the cartel members.
Yes. That's what it feels like, right? So where's that extra $150? Where's the amount of money going where when people say that, oh, if I negotiate with my doctor, they can bring the bill down 90%. Where was the 90% going otherwise? Was it going straight in their pockets? And is that only realistic because of insurance? Because without insurance, nobody would be able to pay that. How would somebody be able to pay $200,000 just for having a kid? In the US, like, that's how much it costs, right? 100, 200, $300,000 just to have a kid, which is crazy because maternity wards are super expensive. So how does Bitcoin change all of that? I think we're going to see people saving in Bitcoin and then being able to pay for their debts and not go into debt and get divorces over medical debt. It changes everything. It changes so much about the world. And I think this is where capitalism is going to come in. So we're going to have actual competitors rather than just government appointed competitors for certain roles. We're going to have actual competitors, and this changes everything, right? It changes how the stock market works. It changes how the real estate market works. It changes how healthcare works. It changes how investing works, right? Instead of just everybody buying index funds blindly and buying as many as they can, people like Warren Buffett can no longer dump their crappy stocks on the rest of the world.
Yeah, people holding index funds with stocks like United Health in there.
Yeah.
So
Does
they're
the S&P 500 have United Health in it?
well, what was that other one that sells military equipment?
Raytheon.
Raytheon. Yeah, so people are literally contributing to this fiat system, to this evil, to the wars, to people being sick. People are contributing to that system just by wanting to outrun inflation.
Yeah. I found
Sick.
a list so we can see here. List of aerospace and defense companies stocks in the S&P 500. There's L3. Like, there's so many of them. That's crazy. Arconic, Boeing, General Dynamics, Honeywell, Hunting. How many are there? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 out of 500 companies are dedicated to death and destruction.
And they're all losing to Bitcoin.
And they're all losing to Bitcoin.
And that's not going to turn around either.
No. No.
Because what funds the wars? Fiat.
Yeah.
What's losing value every single day, every single second? Fiat. So the entities and the governments and the companies who are still trying to go down this road, and I think this is a good example of like Buffett, like the people who are still investing in this old system that we're coming out of right now are just going to get left behind.
Yeah.
So
And somebody said
Buffett,
here, oh, sorry. Somebody said here, Buffett is 94 and has his money. He could care less about Bitcoin. Yeah, but
it's true.
it's about leaving. I mean, if he's continuing to invest, it means that he wants to leave a legacy, right? Because otherwise, he could just stop. What does he need the money for now? If this is what it was about, if he could care less about money, why is he buying in United Health? Why is he buying UHC? Why is he not donating that money? If this is what it's about, can you just highlight that comment from Sabrina Bell? Buffett is 94 and has his money. I get it, but if that was the case, then why is he not doing something else with the money? Why is he not upgrading his house if he doesn't care about the money? Why is he not getting a better car if he doesn't care? It's because he wants to leave a legacy. He's buying UHC because he thinks it's going to go up. He wants to leave a legacy. The best legacy that he could leave is to put Bitcoin in Berkshire Hathaway. And they have like $300 billion of cash. They could become the biggest Bitcoin holder in the world. They're not going to do it.
How could they? Yeah.
Like they could buy 1 million Bitcoin if they wanted to.
But that's what I was just thinking through is like if they wanted to, like let's just say that Buffett fell over, hit his head on the ground, decided he wanted to start buying Bitcoin, and they wanted to take all their cash that they have and start buying Bitcoin. How much do you realistically think that they could get? I mean, the math at 120K is one thing, but like what would actually play out there if Berkshire actually decided to dump all that into Bitcoin? Like what would the price actually go to? Where would the Bitcoin come from?
I think there would be Bitcoin that comes back out of people's wallets, right? People will sell, like the OGs. People have been holding for it. Like that's the reason why the price hasn't gone to like $1 million already, right?
That
The
and paper
is coming.
Bitcoin.
It's sorry. Oh, and
I said
I don't.
that and paper Bitcoin.
Do you think it's paper Bitcoin? I don't know if it is. I think there's enough people selling. And I think Bitcoin is just moving hands, right? It's moving hands.
Rajat, you really think that there's as many people selling Bitcoin as there are buying Bitcoin right now?
Well, no, but that's why the price is going up slightly, right?
Slightly, but I think that the mismatch there of like way more buyers than sellers right now, it doesn't make sense that the price is just going up slowly. That's why I say that there's paper Bitcoin.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I don't know. I feel like it's realistic to see that like people like there was this chart. So I want to show you something here. There's this chart that shows you how long people are holding their Bitcoin for, and then it shows you the percentage of people who have held for that long. So let me zoom in here. I'll zoom in. This is from Unchained. So you can see here the people who held for 10 years or longer is decreasing. So people are selling. The long-term holders are giving their Bitcoin away. Like you see that the 7 years to 10 years.
Yep.
Right at the end there, it is moving. But I think that's a result of Bitcoin's price going above 100,000. And over time, as the price goes up, more and more people will sell. I do think more people will sell. Because you have, like, we've talked about this before, right? Most people have no idea what Bitcoin is. They don't understand it. They have no idea what it is. So the people who hold Bitcoin, a lot of them, like yesterday, there was a wallet from the Satoshi era that sold 300 Bitcoin or moved 300 Bitcoin, right? And there's people who have thousands of Bitcoin who are selling. I think one of the issues here with those Bitcoin treasury companies is that a lot of the people who are selling Bitcoin to those treasury companies they're giving away their Bitcoin, but they're getting a massive multiple, basically, right? So Adam Back gave some Bitcoin to what was the company that Adam Back is running? I forgot what the company is. Let me see here.
It's not Bullish, is it? That was a different guy.
No, I think they're trying to start a a Bitcoin company. But essentially, he's giving them 30,000 Bitcoin. They're probably paying him a premium, right? Because if he runs the company, he can do that if he wants to. I don't know the exact rules on that. I don't know how that would work, but he could sell them non-KYC Bitcoin at a premium. And what's the government going to do about that? They can't do anything because they don't know where the Bitcoin came from. So I don't know if it's paper Bitcoin. I think it's OGs unloading what they have. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're right here.
I mean, yeah, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like just kind of how I think this through in my head, like and it's kind of hard to explain on a live show. But like, let's say that your theory here is correct, and that people who have been in Bitcoin for a long time are starting to sell some of their coins. Okay, it makes sense, I guess, in theory. But like when you think about it, how many people were actually in Bitcoin a long time ago? Like there wasn't really that many people who were in Bitcoin that long ago. Like we're talking thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe. And it's like if they're selling a lot of coins, they're cashing out. They obviously have a good understanding of Bitcoin if they've held on through everything that's happened since then. And they're selling it for what? Fiat? Maybe they need a new house, but they could sell like 2 Bitcoin or 3 Bitcoin now to get enough to buy a house. So I just feel like there's such a small amount of Bitcoiners who have been around that long, and there's such a small amount of Bitcoin that they actually need to sell to actually meet their lifestyle needs. And I just think that there's so many people who are buying Bitcoin, not people, but like entities, large entities buying thousands of Bitcoin. And it's like there's just a huge mismatch there for me in terms of like way more buyers than sellers right now, that it doesn't really make sense that the price is only going up this amount.
See, you have to remember that the buyers are public, but the sellers aren't, right? Because there's a very you mentioned there that there's a very small number of people who have all the Bitcoin, right? That small number of people, even if they sell 1% of their stack, it's not going to be much for them, right? If they sell 10% of their stack, 20% of their stack, they don't really care. And maybe to them, like some of these, keep in mind, some of the whales are probably also playing games, right? Where they're selling because they think the price will go down, and then they buy back, right? So all those, and then part of that Bitcoin doesn't get bought back, and then a lot of retail is just buying in and out. They're selling, they're buying, they're selling, they're buying. This is a lot of the stuff that I'm not sure if the audience knows about him. His name is Checkmatey. Have you heard of him, Jor? Checkmatey. So on X, he talks about this a lot. And there's another guy named Sani. He actually talks about where the Bitcoin is, who holds the Bitcoin. He talks about a lot of that. And I think Bitcoin is just moving hands. I don't think it's paper Bitcoin. I could be wrong here, but I don't think it is.
I mean, realistically, it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
Like you can't tell me that all the deposits that Coinbase takes in every day, like let's say that somebody sent in $50,000 to Coinbase, $50,000. Do you think Coinbase actually goes out and buys $50,000 worth of Bitcoin the same day, the same hour?
No.
And that's why I think, to me, like that's why they limit their withdrawals. They say it's because it's for security and they don't want people to lose their money off of Coinbase. And it's like, I think of Coinbase very much like a bank, in the sense that if everybody tried to withdraw their Bitcoin from Coinbase at the same time, Coinbase would have their pants down and they wouldn't have enough Bitcoin.
Did you see last year BlackRock said that they don't want, so before it was like 30-day settlement, and BlackRock changed it to 12 hours. Do you remember that? I think you might have made a video about that. I thought that was really interesting because, especially with what you're saying here, maybe BlackRock doesn't want paper Bitcoin to be created.
I mean, why would they? Like their incentives aren't to keep Bitcoin's price down.
Yeah.
They're clearly like, I mean, the one part of it is that they make all of their fees off the balance of the portfolio. So as Bitcoin goes up, their clients make more money. Their clients are happier. There's no reason why BlackRock would actually want Bitcoin to go down.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to that question that you asked. How much Bitcoin could Berkshire acquire, right? I think they could get to 1 million. With what I was saying there, even if they take self custody, even if they bid Bitcoin up all the way to $300,000, that would mean that they had like $300 billion in cash or something like that. If they buy 1 million Bitcoin, they bid Bitcoin's price up to $300,000, they could potentially get to that point.
But I just think it would be way higher than 300,000 though. Because you're pretty much cutting the available supply in half for the world.
You're cutting the supply in half, but more supply will come to the market.
Maybe.
Right? Like, as the price goes up, more people will sell. A lot of people that are in the comments right now, they're gonna sell when the price goes up. When the price goes to $1 million, they're gonna sell. I'm telling you that right now. Like they're gonna sell their
Are
coins.
you?
I'm not. I plan to hold for as long as I can. If
Yeah.
Bitcoin's price goes to 300 grand, I'm gonna take loans against my Bitcoin.
Right. And I feel like there's a
Right?
lot of people like me and you out there too who have
There
Bitcoin
are,
today. Yeah.
of course, and that's the thing, right? That's why the Bitcoin price keeps going up slowly. So over time, it keeps going up. It keeps going up slowly, but I think that's what's so painful for people, right? Because people expect this to be a get rich quick scheme. So if Bitcoin's price suddenly shoots to 300K, if it goes from like overnight, if they go do a smash buy of $300 billion worth of Bitcoin and overnight it goes to 300K, Warren Buffett's probably going to be holding the bag for a really long time. I think that's partly why they do dollar cost average, right? Because they know as people get bored, as people see their portfolio not going up, they start selling. Right? They start giving their Bitcoin away. And that's part of these whale games that people play. What whales do is they buy over time. They don't buy all at once. They buy over time to make sure that the market doesn't freak out. Right? Because if they buy all at once, they're gonna bid the price up. They're gonna move the marginal price all the way up to 3, 4, 500K. And then they're gonna get dumped on by everybody else. So that's why they dollar cost average over time. Like they keep buying 1,000 Bitcoin, 10,000 Bitcoin, like MicroStrategy. They're buying 10, 15, 20,000 Bitcoin every few months.
Right. And that's a huge, like their MicroStrategy or strategy is out buying the new supply coming in
Yeah.
themselves, one company. And so when you think about how many more companies are buying, like every single day, there's a new public company adding Bitcoin to their treasury. Like
Yeah.
that's a lot of Bitcoin that's being bought up right now by large funds. And I just don't think that there's enough OGs that are willing to sell that much Bitcoin that it makes sense that the prices, and don't get me wrong, like I'm not mad that the price isn't moving at all. Like at all. Like I'm happy that we can still trade one fake dollar for 800 of the scarcest units in human history. I'm
Yeah.
happy about that. It just doesn't make any sense to me, like logically, based on the amount of buyers versus the amount of sellers, that the price is only moving this much.
It's because you understand it, right? You understand that this is risk free. Most people who own Bitcoin don't think that way. There are people who own, like, did you see? I posted something. Do you think that Craig Wright owns Bitcoin?
Like has any Bitcoin?
Like BTC, yeah.
Oh, I would hope so.
Right? So he thinks that Bitcoin is never going to go to $1 million. Right? How many people do you
Like
think
Satoshi
own
you're talking about?
like fake Satoshi? Fake Toshi. So he thinks that Bitcoin's never going to $1 million. And that's crazy to me. So I think Bitcoin is going to go to 1 million. It's going to go to 10. I've talked about this so many times. It's going to go to 10 million. It's going to go to 100 million because eventually there's going to be so many dollars chasing Bitcoin and more dollars being added to the economy. The purchasing power of the dollar is going to keep going down. So he thinks that it's not going to go to 1 million. So think about it. Would he sell at $1 million? I'm sure he will. So I think if somebody has cash, they could get to 1 million Bitcoin, but I don't think that most people have that cash, of course. Warren Buffett does, and he's not making the move.
Yeah. I don't know, man. There's a lot of things we don't. It's really hard to wrap your mind around. Like the one thing that I love most about Bitcoin is it's very transparent.
Yeah.
It's transparent and there's a fixed supply of it. And so when you have companies like the one I mentioned before, who I think is this is just my opinion. I don't have any hard evidence of this. I think that they are manipulating the price of Bitcoin through paper Bitcoin. I just don't like the fact that they are able to do that and essentially manipulate the supply aspect of Bitcoin, because without the fixed supply, Bitcoin doesn't have a fraction of the value that it has as a fixed supply, as an asset with a fixed supply.
Yeah.
And so until we get to a point where we have all the exchanges like River, where they're actually showing proof of reserves, where if you send them $500, they have the equivalent amount of Bitcoin for that $500. Because that's where people get this whole thing wrong. You might send $10,000 to Coinbase and they might say on your phone, on your little Coinbase wallet, that you have $10,000 worth of Bitcoin, but that doesn't mean that Coinbase actually has that Bitcoin. When you go to withdraw that, they have to have the Bitcoin. But until then, that's just cash in a slush fund at Coinbase. That's not $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. That's a number on a screen. So that's kind of my thing here is like, we don't have a way of knowing that. And until we do, until all companies are kind of like forced into doing that. And I think it is going to be market driven in the sense that slowly people who use Coinbase today are going to move over to River because they show proof of reserves. Slowly people who own Strategy today are going to move over to 21 Capital because they show proof of reserves. And then Coinbase and Strategy are going to say, hey, we're losing a lot of companies here. We're losing a lot of attention here, a lot of investment. We need to start showing proof of reserves. And until that point, I mean, it's kind of speculation, but I just think that they have the ability at least to create paper Bitcoin. Whether they are or not, they still have the ability to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so somebody asked, what is paper Bitcoin? This was really high up. I don't know if you'll be able to get that comment, but that's okay.
Oh, right here.
Somebody asked, what is paper? Oh, you found it. Okay. So what is paper Bitcoin? Actually, we got a few comments like that. So paper Bitcoin is basically an IOU. It's like if, let's say, for example, if I'm an exchange, or let's say I'm a bank and I have 1,000 ounces of gold in my vault and I issue money against that gold. I issue pieces of paper against that gold, but that gold is actually owned by people. The people who have those currency, that unit of currency, they own that gold. So what I could do is I could create as much currency as I want to, and I could keep printing more and more because it doesn't take time, effort, and energy to create more of that currency. Until you take out that gold from my vaults, I can keep creating more and more currency. I can keep saying that more and more people own that gold. And that's what fractional reserve banking is. So what we're saying here is that the Bitcoin exchanges are trying to create paper Bitcoin, and they're trying to create fractional reserve banking with Bitcoin, which I don't think is sustainable, because with gold, it's hard to take self-custody, right? So you can stop people from taking self-custody. You can, let's say you have an exchange, let's say you have a vault, and you can tell people, like, we're not going to let you take self-custody of it. And that's exactly what the US government did in August of 1971. So they had the Nixon shock, where they said the US dollar is no longer backed by gold. It can no longer be exchanged for gold. And they just stopped anybody from being able to exchange their dollars for gold. In this case, if they do that with Bitcoin, the news is going to spread very quickly. It's like with FTX. So if FTX, when FTX was no longer able to let people withdraw their Bitcoin, or their crypto in general, the information spread very quickly on the internet, and people started just withdrawing as quickly as they could, and the news spread like wildfire. It spread very, very fast, and FTX was creating paper Bitcoin, and they were basically giving it to their customers. They had a certain amount of Bitcoin, but they had way more IOUs out there against that Bitcoin. So there were more claims to that Bitcoin than the actual Bitcoin that existed. So let's say they had 100,000 Bitcoin, but they had 500,000 worth of claims against that Bitcoin. So what happens here is, if everybody tries to withdraw their Bitcoin, they can't. So paper Bitcoin, what we mean here is it's an IOU. It's a piece of paper that's really backed by nothing. It's worthless. They tell you that you have your Bitcoin, but you actually don't. And this is the only way to protect yourself against this, is to take self-custody. If you don't take self-custody, you have paper Bitcoin. If your Bitcoin is on an exchange, that's paper Bitcoin. That's fake Bitcoin. That's not real. It's just a number.
Yep.
You see that number, but it can be changed at any point. You can add another order for $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. They can add one Bitcoin to your stack, but if they don't actually have that Bitcoin on hand, then that's not real. That's what we mean by paper Bitcoin. So paper Bitcoin is fake Bitcoin. It's worth nothing. Paper means that it can be just printed out of nothing, and then they can keep printing more, and they can keep printing more. And what Jor is saying here is that they are creating more and more paper Bitcoin, and they're adding it to the supply. And what they're doing is they're fulfilling demand with this fake Bitcoin, and there's actually not real Bitcoin.
Right, because let's say that everybody in the world decided tomorrow that they wanted to buy Bitcoin, and they all sent in $10,000 to Coinbase, and Coinbase on their app showed that everybody had $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. That doesn't mean that they actually have the Bitcoin, or that the people who have claim to that Bitcoin are actually going to get that Bitcoin. It's very similar to like if you went down to your bank, if you got your whole town together and said, hey, let's go see if the bank is creating paper money here for us, or if they actually have the deposits that they claim to, right? Because if you went to the bank with $10,000, you would expect that one day at any time you wanted to, you could go to the bank and withdraw that $10,000, right? The same thing with Coinbase. If you sent Coinbase $10,000, you'd expect one day you'd be able to take $10,000 worth of Bitcoin out of there. It's the same thing. But if everybody in your local area went down to the bank and tried to get their money out of the bank does not have that much money. That's fractional reserve. When they take in $1 worth of deposit, they basically create 90 cents of new money. They keep maybe a fraction of that on hand, and then they loan out the rest of it that they don't actually have. They just create money out of thin air. And that's what I think Coinbase is doing. And whether or not they are, that's not the point. The point is that they have the ability to do that because they don't show their proof of reserves. Nobody knows how much Bitcoin Coinbase actually has. And nobody knows how many claims that customers have to that Bitcoin versus actually how much Bitcoin they have. So with that in mind, I'm going to shill something here because this is my perspective here. I think that people should be using exchanges like River or Bitcoin Well, because Bitcoin Well doesn't actually keep any Bitcoin on hand. You send Bitcoin Well dollars, they send you Bitcoin. There's no possibility for Bitcoin Well to manipulate the price of Bitcoin. And with River, I'm going to share a link there for people in the US to sign up for River, because they actually have proof of reserves. When somebody sends them a deposit, they have the equivalent amount of Bitcoin to match that. Whereas if everybody at River went to withdraw their Bitcoin from River, they would have the Bitcoin to give out. Coinbase, in my opinion, does not. And that's why they have withdrawal limits on their Bitcoin, because if everybody tried to do it at the same time, they would look pretty silly. And they claim to do that in the name of security, but actually they do it, I think, because they don't have all the Bitcoin that they claim to, which there is the paper Bitcoin. And paper Bitcoin allows for the price to be suppressed because they can essentially meet the demand. As Rajat said there, they can fulfill the demand for people sending them money without actually having the Bitcoin to back that. There's no proof of reserves that they actually have that Bitcoin.
It's just a fake system. It's a fake foundation. It's nothing. Like the Bitcoin that you have is your foundation. If they have no Bitcoin, but they have a lot of liabilities on top of that, it's just it's a house of cards. If one small thing happens, let's say one person makes a post, one prominent person makes a post saying, withdraw all your Bitcoin from Coinbase. And Coinbase is in this shaky position where they don't actually have enough Bitcoin. I don't think they're in that position. So I'm not trying to defame them or anything like that. I'm not trying to, I don't want to get a lawsuit here. We don't know. We're not saying that they have this situation. Jor doesn't know. I don't know. We're not trying to say that Coinbase has this problem. We're saying that why would you want to take a chance? Why not avoid it completely? I think that's so important. Just you can take self-custody, so why wouldn't you?
Yep, exactly. I think the only reason why somebody wouldn't take self-custody right now is if they don't know what they're doing. And to me, that's a problem. If you tried to take self-custody of your Bitcoin, you don't really know what you're doing, that's a risk to you. That's how most people lose their Bitcoin, is they don't know what they're doing with their private keys, where they're storing it. So in that sense, if you have to do that, I would say to use something like River, where they actually have the proof of reserves there, and they show they actually have the Bitcoin. So that's the only reason I think that people shouldn't hold their own keys, is because they're not ready for self-custody yet. And if you are somebody like that, I would suggest keeping your Bitcoin with a place like River and not on Coinbase.
Yeah. Hey, our audience wants to know how your beard is so thick.
My beard?
Yeah.
What?
J-Sauce. J-Sauce and the other J.
How is it so thick? I just don't shave it.
Are these your burner accounts? I'm just kidding.
I mean, yeah, we got the two bearded. We should have called this one the bearded Bitcoiners, because Forrest has a mustache.
We could convince him to grow a beard.
I would look like a pedophile with a mustache. So
I don't even want to imagine what I would look like with a mustache.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to you, honestly. I've just always been able to grow a decent amount of facial hair, and so I do. I think it'd be a crime not to.
You said your beard is very powerful.
Yeah.
And your deep voice.
What's going on here?
This
Where did
it's
I
becoming
appear?
it's becoming a beard show. Okay, actually, let's go back to the Bitcoin. There was another comment there that I said, I have a genuine question, but buying Bitcoin is part of the belief that price will go up forever. What if that belief is gone?
This is a
Also, I think
comment, Rajat?
yeah, it's a comment. It's from LODE, load at 304. They said, I have a genuine question, but buying Bitcoin is part of the belief price will go up forever. What if that belief is gone? So, okay, let's think of it this way. Ever since I actually discovered Bitcoin, ever since I got orange pilled, even before that, actually, I think since like 2021, I've literally thought about Bitcoin every single day. Every single day. There isn't a time where I can't relate something to Bitcoin. Oh, this thing sucks. How could Bitcoin fix this? If every time I go to the grocery store, wow, prices of everything are going up. How can Bitcoin fix this? So how is it that the belief, unless Bitcoin goes to like $10 tomorrow, maybe the belief will disappear. But if you have a 4 or more year time horizon and you get through it, you get through one cycle, and over time more and more people are getting through that cycle, that belief is not going to disappear, because I don't think Bitcoin is going to disappoint. If you have real Bitcoin, you have it in self custody, your Bitcoin is not going to disappoint you. So that belief is never going to disappear, at least in my opinion.
I would echo that, and I would say that actually the harder you look into it, like Rajat said there, there's a brand called Adidas, which is all day I dream about sports. Rajat should make a brand called Adidab, all day I dream about Bitcoin. And it's true.
Yeah.
Like that's literally what we have, a company called Bitcoin Citadel where we help people secure their Bitcoin and inheritance stuff. And what really stemmed or created that company was just like me thinking about all the things that could go wrong with my security and how somebody could take my sats away from me and the holes that I have in my own security setup. And so it is something I think about a lot. And it's like, for me, it seems like the more time I actually spend learning about Bitcoin, the more my belief actually grows, because the more you can understand this network and how robust it is and how powerful and unstoppable it is, it actually, I would like to meet one person who spent 1,000 hours learning about Bitcoin and decided that Bitcoin wasn't for them anymore. I just think that, I don't know what's rare in this world, but I think that that would be a very, very difficult breed of person to find. Somebody who spent 1,000 hours studying Bitcoin and doesn't own a lot of Bitcoin.
Yeah. And you have to think about it. So people think that, oh, it has to have a new stream of money coming in all the time. But no, the people who already understand Bitcoin, who have Bitcoin, will continue to buy. So it's just compounding on top of one another, right? So you have people who were buying when it was at lower prices, and they're continuing to buy. Right? It
Yep.
keeps going. It keeps going. It's like every year there's more people buying, more Bitcoin being taken out of the pool of Bitcoin and going into people's wallets, and that Bitcoin is never going to be sold again. And you're going to see over time, if we go back to that hodl wave chart, let me just bring that up again. I think that's actually a really important chart to take a look at. Once you take a look at that chart, it shows you how people are just holding for longer and longer. Right. So what this means is what this shows you is the percentage of people who are holding for a certain period of time. So you can see here, over time, more and more people are holding for 10 or more years. The one at the top there is 10 or more years, the purple. You can see here in the beginning, it was nearly none, because at that time, Bitcoin was only around for a little while, right? It wasn't around for 10 years yet, 2019. And as you keep going, the percentage keeps increasing. So more and more Bitcoin is being held, and it's not being sold for longer and longer. And this is what something like Bitcoin requires. For Bitcoin to keep growing, this is what it needs. People need to have an incentive to hold it. And that incentive is the price going up. Today we're measuring that price in a corrupt form of value, which is the fiat currencies, but in the future we're going to value it in dollars. Or sorry, we're going to value it in goods and services, right? And I got this one really, really great question from someone. I want to make a video about it, but what would happen if if there's no more Bitcoin on exchanges? Bitcoin's price would skyrocket. It would mean that we no longer have a need for exchanges. It means that there's no longer people who want to exchange their Bitcoin for dollars. And what does that mean? That means that the price of everything is in Bitcoin. Everything is priced in Bitcoin at that point. From now till however long it takes, let's say 20, 30, 40 years from now, you're going to see that more and more Bitcoin is being held for 10 or more years. So now we see here that it went from 0% for 10 plus years at the top there. Do you see that, Jor?
Yep.
So it went from 0 to 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now it's at 17%. So everything in terms of Bitcoin goes, you're going to see higher highs and higher lows for everything. You're going
That's
to
because
see
they're
that
all lost.
maybe. But what I mean here is that you're going to see higher highs and higher lows on everything, meaning that you see higher highs and higher lows on the price. You see higher highs and higher lows for the people who are holding for these longer and longer periods. You're going to see them always increase over time because people are no longer going to give their Bitcoin away. They're just going to keep holding. And that's Bitcoin's incentive right there. That's what makes Bitcoin the best money. That's what makes it so that people keep believing in it. I know people from there's a few people on Twitter who have been around Bitcoin for over a decade, and it's not like they stopped talking about it. They kept buying. They kept talking about it. They've been talking about it for over 10 years. You think that they're going to stop believing in it? I don't think so. I think when you first figure out what Bitcoin is, it's impossible not to look deeper into it.
Yeah, you might find that you might have a couple letters behind your name, like a CFA or a CPA, and then all of a sudden you get touched by the Bitcoin, you get orange pilled, and then you don't think anything else matters, and it's true because nothing else does, and that's really where we are right now. Where kind of going back to like what we were talking about with Warren Buffett there's a lot of people who are still spending a lot of their time and energy in the old system, and it's basically for nothing right now. It's basically for nothing. Whatever they're building, whatever they're investing in that system is becoming more and more irrelevant every single day. And I mean, we've been kind of vindicated with the price of Bitcoin going up, while the rest of the world suffers in a sense, which is kind of sad to say. But as everything else goes up for people, where the food prices go up, the gas cost goes up, the rent cost goes up, and they're falling further and further behind because they're storing their wealth in fiat. And the one certainty here, this actually made a video about this for my 365 days of Bitcoin course today. The one certainty we have in life right now is not actually Bitcoin. Bitcoin could still fail. It could. Like Rajat and I aren't going to sit up here and say that there's 0% chance Bitcoin fails. It still could fail. But the one certainty we have is that the fiat dollar will continuously lose value forever. Nothing can change that. Nothing can turn that around. And so if you're somebody, whether you're allocating $1 million to it or $5 that you have left over from this week, it's still a better store of value today than the fiat dollar. And you don't have to complicate things. That's all it comes down to, is that fiat is losing value forever. Bitcoin is a better way to store value today. So what's the argument?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And the longer you hold it, the better off you are, right? The only thing that you can do right now is to stack. That's it. That's the easiest thing. Just create the habit of buying Bitcoin whenever you have extra money, right? That's the best thing you can do. Over time, as Bitcoin's price goes up, you're going to be able to take advantage of things like Bitcoin-backed loans, right? And right now, if you don't have much Bitcoin today, let's say taking a $5,000 loan when you have $10,000 of Bitcoin would be extremely risky. But over time, you're going to see that as your stack keeps growing, and I want to just show the numbers here. I did a video on this, and it did really, really well. So I think a lot of people are very interested in this topic. So let me just share the number here. The numbers, sorry. Share my compound interest calculator. So you can see here that this is the price of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin balance over time. If you keep stacking $250 worth of Bitcoin every month, keep stacking that amount over time, just keep going, keep going. Bitcoin grows at 25%. You can see here that in 2035, you're going to have $120,000. And you started, so in 10 years, you started with, in that 10-year period, you would have put in $30,000 and you would now have 125,000. But after 20 years, you can see here, 2045, your Bitcoin's worth $1.2 million. You would have put in 60K and it's now worth $1.2 million. So 20 years, 60K, your Bitcoin's worth $1.2 million. And with that $1.2 million, if we go back to 2045, you can take on a loan for, you can see here, you can take a loan for, so you can use 5% of your stack as collateral, and you can take on a 50% loan to value loan, and you can get $32,000 of liquidity out of that Bitcoin. Like that's
And what'd you put into it?
In total, you would have put in 60K. And in 2045, you can take out $32,000 on 5% of your stack. If you want to go if you want to go a little bit more risky, you could take on $128,000 of debt on your Bitcoin with a very, very, again, it's a little bit more risky with 20% as your collateral and 50% as your loan to value. So you're borrowing against 10% of your stack. It's a little bit more risky. In the first option, you would have only borrowed against 2.5% of your stack. But if you give this a few more years, like you can see here, if you wait till 2055, you keep going with your $250 per month, you'd have $12.1 million worth of Bitcoin. $12.1 million. Your annual expenses at that point would be $311,000, of course, but you could take a loan for $302,000 against your Bitcoin, against 2.5% of your stack. That's insane. And that number keeps going. Like that number will keep growing over time. It'll keep growing. You'll be able to get bigger and bigger loans against that amount. This is how you basically unlock the liquidity of your Bitcoin, the potential of your Bitcoin. And I'm not saying that you do this today, because right now Bitcoin is very volatile. Eventually, you will see that Bitcoin's price is so much higher than where it is today that you're able to take on as much money as you want to. It's literally an infinite fiat cheat code. And all you have to do is keep stacking. That's it.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to like the title of this video today was, did Bitcoiners get rugged by the US government? No. Bitcoiners got a gift from the US government. The fact that the US government is not printing money to buy Bitcoin is a gift to everybody here. Because let's say that you have 10 million sats right now in your wallet and you're slowly accumulating. You're buying maybe daily on River or weekly on Bitcoin Well, one of those two exchanges, but you're buying consistently. If the government decided that they were going to start buying Bitcoin, you would look at your balance there, 10 million sats, and it's probably not going to go up very much from there, just because it's going to be so difficult to obtain sats. You're going to have to pay so much more to get such a small amount of sats. Whereas now, without any governments being involved yet, we still have the ability to front run them, and you can get a lot more sats for the dollars that you bring in every month or every week or every day, whatever it is. You can still make hay here in Bitcoin. If you're watching this in 2025 right now, you still have the ability to stack a really sufficient amount based on what Rajat just showed there. It doesn't take much, but because of the fact that governments are not buying Bitcoin yet, that is a blessing for people like us who don't have the ability to print money.
Yeah. And EFFF said there, so what do we do to pay back? What do we do with the money that's going to pay back the loan? So when you get that loan, you could buy more Bitcoin with it. You could pay for your lifestyle. How do you pay it back though? You can pay it back using just payments over time. You can pay it back with a small amount of your Bitcoin after a few years or after a few months, however you want to do it. You could pay it back with a lump sum, or you could never pay it back because your Bitcoin stack is going to keep increasing in value. And at some point, your loan is going to be so small in comparison to your Bitcoin collateral that you could never be liquidated. And if you just wrap your head around that, this is how the wealthy build wealth, right? This is how the wealthy get to where they are. They borrow against their assets, and then they spend that money to buy more assets. Bingo. You can do that with Bitcoin. You can use that to pay for your lifestyle. I would say avoid using it to pay for your lifestyle if you can, because that way
buy appreciating assets. Buy more Bitcoin with it.
Right.
Okay. Well, Rajat, we only got like 9 minutes here, right?
Yeah, 9 minutes.
So somebody sent in 3,334 sats to our Maple Bitcoin Reserve here and said, quick zap to support the show. So big thanks to whoever sent that in. And I also wanted to give a big shout out to, somebody sent in 1,000 sats over on Zapstream too.
Wow.
Said, you see this? Yeah, we see it. We see you. Thank you for that. And I wanted to give a big shout out to the people who are on our Maple Bitcoin school community. We're actually going to be heading over there in about 5 minutes from now. And we're going to do our Maple Bitcoin happy hour, which is a private conversation with all our members in there. You have the ability to come out of the chat, turn your video on, turn your audio on, give some more context to whatever's bothering you in Bitcoin, whatever questions you have. in Bitcoin. You're going to get Rajat and myself today in there, plus other members of the community. And so we do that every single Friday. When we started this community, it was only once per month, but we actually boosted it up to be once per week because we feel like there's enough demand for it. And we really want to just create as much value within this community that it just doesn't make any financial sense not to be a member of this community. So that's what we're working towards. We got about 6 or 7 exclusive master classes that we've been posting in there so far. Just a beautiful, beautiful community over there. So you get a 7-day free trial. You could do a free happy hour for today if you wanted to. We're not going to tell you that you can't do that. But I just shared the link there in the chat if you would like to join. Free trial. Stop by for a happy hour, have a beer, and there's our master classes here. I got one more to add too.
Oh, amazing. From yesterday?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, so we've been going pretty hard on these. We've been trying to put as much knowledge into these videos as we possibly can. I think these are probably some of the best tutorials on Bitcoin, how to understand Bitcoin, and we've been putting a lot of time into them. So I think this is extremely valuable.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of different benefits of being in a community like this. Obviously, we do our private show after the live streams every week. We call it Maple Bitcoin Happy Hour. But one thing I think is going to be very important, whether you join our community or a different community, but it's just staying up to date, staying informed. There's so many things happening right now in the world. As AI and technology advances, there's going to be a lot of blind spots for people, and it's literally impossible to stay on top of everything. And so the way that I found about a couple things that I needed to know about recently wasn't on X, it wasn't on Nostr, it was actually from the communities that I'm a part of. Oh,
nice.
There you go. Shout out to Andrew. But yeah, I mean, just staying informed, that's a big part of being a Bitcoiner going forward. Is there's going to be a lot of people trying to get those sats from you. There's going to be a lot of different attack vectors around on the internet, and it's impossible to track it on X, Reddit, Nostr, whatever you use to stay up to date. The most effective and efficient way you can do that is just have a community and a support group that you can rely on. So there it is. It is in the chat. Yeah, I'm trying to screen through some of these comments here.
Yeah, so many.
I saw a good comment about Forest. I lost it, but did we miss any super chats? No, eh? Oh, we got one from Grady.
We missed one.
Yeah,
from Grady. I don't know enough about it, to be honest. If I make a video on that, I don't think you'd want to get my content on that. I wouldn't rely on my own content because I don't know enough about it to make a video. That's fair.
So Rajat, you got to take 5 or 6 hours of your life, make a video about it, and so Grady can figure out whether he should do it or not. Grady, the best thing to do is just trust yourself. Do as much research as you can on it. It sounds like it's a profitable venture for you right now, but don't listen to Rajat or myself on it. Dig in for yourself. There's a lot of resources out there. You know what you're looking for. You can find specific information on that. Yeah, he's already doing it.
Yeah, if it's working for you, keep doing it. Keep doing it, man. Like, that's great. I'm happy for you if it's working for you, and make sure you take self-custody of that Bitcoin, right? I don't want you to get banned. Sorry, I don't want you to get screwed over. I don't want you to get, I don't want somebody to scam you. Why don't you create videos on this? I feel like that'd be so valuable, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're already doing it, you could make money off of this too, right? If it's as valuable as you say it is, Grady, I mean, I think so many people would find value in that. That would be so fulfilling, I think, on your end too. People
fully agree. Fully agree. And doing so, you're probably going to grow your actual knowledge, because when you have to teach other people about it, that's when you do the majority of your learning.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of questions about hardware wallets and stuff right now. Rajat and I both use the Cold Card to store our Bitcoin. So we're not promoting Cold Card. I think it's the best one. It's I think Cold Card gets a really bad rap online about being a super complicated device to use. It's really not. And the nice thing is anybody can use it. It's air gapped. It never connects to the internet, and it has a lot of advanced features on there. So, and it's made in Canada too, which we like. So Cold Card, I think anytime you're looking for a device, make sure that it's air gapped. Make sure you're not plugging it into your computer. That's kind of my step one. And here's the thing, when you're looking to secure your Bitcoin, you have to make an investment. Either way, you either have to invest your time and learn as much as you possibly can about that device and how it's used and how to make sure it's running properly, or you have to invest some dollars and pay somebody to help you with it. You can't just go in blind, because you're going to get absolutely destroyed. So you have to make an investment. If you got a lot of time, I would suggest taking time and learning and doing it yourself. But if you don't have a lot of time, invest in paying somebody who has set up a lot of them before.
Yeah.
So that's it. Wow, that flew, man. That was the fastest episode of all time, I think.
So can we mention what we were talking about before? It would let us know what you guys think if we started the sessions a little earlier. What do you think of that? Are you okay with that, Jor? Like if we do half an hour earlier, because I feel like I want to keep going with these sessions. I really like
Yeah,
these.
no. Even today we did an hour and a half and it still felt really short.
It felt so short. At least this one didn't feel rushed though, because the first one felt a little rushed when we had the happy hour after. Like an hour and a half, I think is good, but if we go a little longer, I feel like that'd be very useful too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll chat amongst ourselves, but it says here Maple Bitcoin happy hour is starting in 1 minute. So again, 0 risk, all reward. You can sign up for a free trial. You can cancel it this time next week. Stop by for the happy hour, ask a question. We think you're going to stick around, but we're not going to force you to. So we'll see you in exactly 2 minutes from now, everybody on Maple Bitcoin. Big shout out to everybody who did send in a zap today. It goes a long way to our not wanting any sponsors on this show. And we very much appreciate it. So thanks, Rajat. Any final words?
Buy Bitcoin.
There it is. Okay. Have a great Friday, great weekend, everybody. And we'll hopefully see you in the happy hour. Bye-bye.